Welcome to Realcast, the weekly roundup of the real asset markets. My name is Richard Betts and I'm joined by Paul Strome, Dan Innes and Nicole Dines. And in the week where Expo Real had 19,000 attendees, Nicole, what was your take on some of the stories?
Well, what I was struck by at Expo Real, Real Asset Media organised many briefings with many panelists, but there was a theme of ESG really running through pretty much all of them. PwC presented their Real Estate Benchmark Survey 2021, which showed that ESG is really shaping the agenda in all sectors. And it's interesting to see from their survey how companies are reacting differently to the challenge of ESG. Another issue that we talked about many times is the future of office. And in a briefing on the future of office, there was real consensus that the sense of panic from last year has passed. And now there's an absolute consensus that the office is here to stay. The hybrid model of working will continue, but that people are longing to go back to the office. But that obviously the pandemic has led to the big transformations and to offices becoming better. Tenants have become a lot more demanding, and there's a real drive to make offices happier places and with more amenities, healthier places. And another issue that came out in the Winning Cities briefing was the fact that ESG issues are really becoming a competitive advantage for a lot of companies. It becomes a sort of differentiating factor for them. And having good offices, it becomes like a sign that they're serious about their employees' well-being, and it helps them attract talent. And as we know, attracting talent is one of the big problems at the moment across Europe in all sectors. So it is in the company's interest as well as being the right thing to do. And that came out in the diversity briefing we held, that companies that are shown to be diverse and inclusive actually perform better because they tend to attract, especially young people who are obviously, as we know, very much aware of those social issues. So the S in ESG is definitely coming to the fore in all sectors, and companies are waking up to the fact that it's in their interest as well as I was saying, it's the right thing to do. Winning cities, as I was saying, is another big theme. After the pandemic, everyone wants to go back to the city, but cities are changing. They're becoming 24-hour diverse living spaces. And the concept of the 15-minute city, which we've talked about before, is very much alive in various ways in big and small cities. And finally, that we had a sustainable logistics briefing, which again showed how logistics is changing because of ESG. Companies have realized that they must become sustainable inside and out. So as well as paying attention to the inside of warehouses, they have to be healthy environments with more natural light, solar panels on the roof, charging points outside, and so on. Part of well-being is also aesthetics. Just building a big box is not enough anymore, and companies are very much interested in building something that's beautiful and memorable, again, to make a difference and to differentiate themselves from the rest.
Yes, it was really interesting, I think, to see that focus on impact and ESG. We, of course, launched Impact Magazine, and there was a very positive kind of response to that across Expo. And interestingly, on that logistics side, that was one of the key topics. We had a number of sessions on that, as well as some of the alternatives, so senior housing and healthcare, as well as data centres, also student housing. All of those extremely well attended with kind of 100 plus people there, as well as more than 100 online. Dan, what have you been watching?
Well, it was announced this week that a huge indoor water park and spa is going to open up in Manchester. This Therme Manchester project is going to feature about 25 different swimming pools, dozens of slides, swim-up bars and botanical gardens. And this kind of water park development, which is 28 acres in size, is going to open up in the Trafford part of Manchester, which is adjacent to the well-known Trafford Centre shopping destination. But the Therme Manchester project is being developed at a cost of about £250 million, and it's going to be the UK's first city-based well-being resort, and will have a Metrolink station directly on its doorstep as well. The Therme Group, who proposed those plans, they say they want to take advantage of the staycation boom in the UK. It's forecast to attract 2 million visitors every year. Sticking with that leisure theme, and elsewhere in the UK, there's also been unanimous approval for a £300 million leisure scheme in Blackpool, which of course is one of the UK's most established seaside resorts. That scheme's going to feature 3 indoor entertainment venues, including a 127,000 square foot flying theatre. That's seats on a mechanical podium in front of a surround screen with sound to give that experience of a ride. There's other elements as well, including 70,000 square feet of public space, a 200-room hotel with a food hall and apartment hotel as well. And that's being developed by Nical and its partner Media Invest Entertainment. And they predict that Blackpool Central could create around 1,000 new jobs and attract an estimated 600,000 additional visitors every year. And in major logistics news this week, Oxford Properties have made a 360 million euro acquisition of two logistics portfolios, one Danish, one French, containing a combined 57 assets from funds managed by M7. That marks Oxford Properties' first acquisition in the Nordics, and it's actively seeking to expand its presence in that region. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on.
It was interesting at Expo. I met a lot of people from the UK, from the Dutch markets, from other markets who I wasn't expecting to be there, which suggests that there was a late rush towards attending Expo Real. Paul, what have you been watching?
CBRE says that there's a post-pandemic recovery underway in European real estate investment market. The firm points out that thanks in part to large platform deals, notably Heimstaden's 9.1 billion acquisition of a residential portfolio from Achilles, which we've discussed here previously, European investment volumes were up 55% in the third quarter. Q3 investment volumes brought the year-to-date investment total to 208 billion. All major markets except for France saw an uptick in Q3 volumes compared to the previous year. And looking at the year-to-date, the UK, Nordics, Spain and Germany led the recovery with investment volumes up 47%, 30%, 22%, 8% respectively, compared to the same period in 2020. However, the total volume for the first three quarters declined in France, Italy and the Netherlands. CBRE EMEA Capital Markets Managing Director Chris Brett said that the mood was positive at Expo Real, which points to a very active Q4 across all markets. Moving on from that, round about March, we usually see the ULI PwC Emerging Trends in Real Estate Europe report coming out. We've just had the brief report on the findings of their US research, which makes interesting reading, among which they're saying that the shift in global institutional investor allocations from other sectors into real estate means that the flood of capital is expected to continue, but a growing consensus sees the property sector as bearing much of the responsibility for climate change. So 55% of respondents disagreed with the contention that changes implemented as a result of COVID-19 will revert to pre-pandemic activity in 2022. And notably, of course, that's hybrid working. And as of early fall 2021, most office workers are still working remotely most of the time. The working from home experiment has been too successful for people to return to the way they work, they're saying. And almost 2/3 of real estate professionals believe that fewer than 75% of workers will come to the office at least 3 days a week in 2022. And they're saying that under almost any conceivable scenario, firms will be leasing less space in the future. And demand for office space will likely decrease between 5 to 15% within the next 3 years. Offices have lost their luster, the ULI is saying, with investors, and that'll account for a declining share of even institutional portfolios. The ULI said that another unfortunate byproduct of the pandemic has been a dramatic reduction in public transport patronage. The switch to cars means that there's a brewing traffic nightmare predicted. Also, and many cities are reporting that traffic congestion is already back to pre-COVID levels. Obviously, there'll be a lot more to look at in the report, and it'll be interesting to compare the views when the European version lands on our desks. And in the light of that gloomy take on the US market, I was interested to see that Azora Capital, Madrid-based private equity manager, is entering the US property market by joining forces with Exan Capital, which is a Miami-based property manager. Azora says the deal is an important step in its continued internationalization strategy and that its experience in identifying new investment themes and value-add opportunistic investments is complemented by Exan's focus on core and core plus.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that Azora deal, and it will be interesting to see what the view is when the survey is done from the point of view of the European perspective for ULI, because certainly the view from the sessions that we had in Expo Real was that there was definitely a positive future for the office markets, which was interesting to see. Thanks very much, Dan. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next week for our regular roundup of the news in the real asset markets.